Welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Nyros. Today is the day, all of you ladies out there, it's Perimenopause Talk Day. We have Dr. Brittany Schamerhorn, who is a naturopathic doctor here in Kelowna. She is a wealth of information and a specialist on the perimenopause midlife transition for women. We really get into it today. Very, very useful and helpful information. If you are a woman or you love a woman that is in midlife, you're going to want to listen up. Today's episode is one I've been especially eager to bring you because it speaks directly to a chapter of life that millions, billions of women are navigating. Like basically all of them that reach middle age. And that is perimenopause. In Canada, more than 10 million women are over the age of 40. And yet, for many, this hormonal transition marked by shifting moods, brain fog, fatigue, weight changes, and more still feels like a mystery. A quarter of our population is in or approaching perimenopause, but nearly half of women say they feel unprepared. And when do they seek help? Over 70% report feeling dismissed or misunderstood by the healthcare system. That's why I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Brittany Schamerhorn, a naturopathic doctor who specializes in evidence-based whole person care for women in midlife. Her work helps women feel seen, heard, and supported, grounding care in both science and real-life experience. In this conversation, we plan to unpack the physiology of perimenopause, and I've heard Dr. Brittany do this before. She's amazing at it. Breaking down myths and offering practical tools grounded in research. Whether you're in this phase yourself or supporting someone who is, I hope this episode leaves you feeling informed, validated, and empowered. Let's get at it. Welcome, Dr. Brittany.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for the conversation.
I'm so excited to have you. Just so bring our audience up to speed, I met Dr. Brittany a couple months ago at an event, and I heard her speak, and she was just so compelling and so passionate on this subject that I knew she was going to be the perfect person to have this conversation with. So I'm super happy to have you.
I'm excited. Thank you.
So we have a bit of a tradition on the Wealthy Podcast, and that is, I'm really curious. Everybody who sits there has a story, has some sort of early memory or at a moment of inspiration, something that compelled them to get on this path to becoming really active and pursuing a career in healthcare. And so I'm curious, like, what is yours? How did you get here?
It's a great question. So I always knew I wanted to be in healthcare. Like, I have loved science. I've loved healthcare forever. And so I was the high school student graduating, going to go to med school, was in my undergrad at UBC. I think I was doing like biochem with a medical concentration. So everyone's going to med school, right? And then in my third year, I gave my parents a minor heart attack, I'm sure. And I said, I'm not finishing my degree. I don't want to do this, but I will take 3 courses. So I'm still covered under your extended health. Thank you very much. Not knowing that they still paid for that, which now as an adult I do know, and I'm like, well, extra thank you. But like the concept was, I love school, like I love learning, and I just wanted to take courses I enjoyed. Like, what a idea, hey? So I was in a nutrition course, and that was when I learned about like naturopathic medicine as an option, and it was like there's been no looking back since that moment. It just has always felt right, even through the grind of school. And then when I came out, you're sort of like a general practice, right? Figuring out what you want to do. And I knew who I wanted to work with. I really loved working with women. I really loved working with women who had like expectations of themselves and wanted to show up and had goals. Moms, like I just knew that person. I didn't know what their thing was. And as I was in practice longer, and I think also as I had girls myself and kind of grew up more, I realized I was like, the world is a bit of a mess and the women are the ones who are going to change it. but they're not hitting their goals or taking opportunities because they just don't feel good. Because midlife is where that's where these opportunities are presented to them, right? They've worked so hard. They've done everything they need to do. And then this transition smacks them in the face and they can't do it.
It really is destabilizing, or derailing for sure.
I think you were quoting some of it like from that Her BC study that came out. And so there's a significant portion of women that will leave the workforce or turn down a promotion because of this transition. And I was like, for me, I was like, that is not okay. And my role is like, I can't do all the things, but women do so many great and cool things. And my job is to help them do the things because I can't do what they do. But what they need to do is very important. So I need to make sure that they can do it. And as I've transitioned sort of my mentality into that space, it's been like very motivating because it's not only do I want to be able to help the woman do it, but I want to help the other NDs, clinicians, practitioners coming up so that they can help their woman do it, so that it's that ripple down effect. Because we just need more women in power positions and they need to feel good to be there.
Absolutely. And we're having this conversation at a pretty cool time in our province. We chatted about this really quickly off mic, but there was a big announcement yesterday with regards to a new clinic out of BC Women's Hospital in the Lower Mainland that is actually recognizing and specifically designed to serve women in perimenopause and menopause. And I know this isn't like, it wasn't on my list, but because it just happened and because you're really sort of connected to this community, what does this mean for women in our province?
I think it just means better access, which is what's important, because there's some patients that are going to be easier to manage. And maybe their primary care provider has taken the courses, these things where they feel confident in managing them. And some of it is pretty straightforward. But then when it's not straightforward, that primary care provider also needs to see every other condition right next to them. And so I think for that clinician to have somewhere to refer to, somewhere to discuss, where maybe there's like that patient lands more in the gray. And with all the knowledge that's online, patients are getting a lot better at advocating for themselves. And in some of these gray area patients, they might know more than the family care provider for their situation. So I think the complex menopause clinic is just going to expand that scope because we need it.
It's super exciting. I also really love it, partially because of what you said just about women in this phase of life being acknowledged and seen for so long. And we're going to really kind of get into this for so long. This has just been like an addendum. Oh, I'm going to see, my family doctor about this or that. Oh, and by the way, I've been really feeling fatigued or this or that. Right. And there's been, say what you will about social media and all of the challenges associated with it, but there's been this really incredible movement driven by some women in the same field as you, naturopathic medicine, MDs, that are really raising the bar in terms of awareness around how prolific the effects of midlife transition are for women. And so this is like really good news. Yeah. Even if, it's just to acknowledge that this is a thing.
Exactly. And I think that's where, because for some of this stuff, and we can talk it now or we'll talk it later, but you just don't feel like yourself. The symptoms can be so vague where they're like harder to identify, the brain fog, the fatigue. And you're like, well, I am tired. I guess I have kids. I guess I'm working. And so and as women, we are so good at pushing our symptoms aside. I will joke, but it's not really a joke, that if a woman has one good week out of a month, she's fine. Like she will be like, yeah, it's okay. Like
totally.
I figured it out.
You just forget.
Yeah. Because it's like you bleed, which is awful. And then you have 1 week that is like, okay, we're actually feeling good. And then you ovulate and PMS starts to creep in and we don't feel super great. And then the week before you feel awful and then it starts again. But that 1 week, you seem to like make up for the rest of it. But as soon as the symptoms creep into that 1 week, that's when we've had enough.
Totally.
And I think because the symptoms can be so vague and there's nothing to identify and we can show up, but for us to be able to show the women and to explain to them or give them these spaces where they can ask questions and they know that they can feel heard, I think that's so important.
Totally. Oh, there's so many things, but I think what's probably good to do at this time is to really pull it straight in and give you the opportunity to answer this question. Why is this conversation so important, and who will benefit from this episode?
I think everyone will benefit, because 100% of people, unless you are a man that never talks to a single human, will be exposed to perimenopause, menopause to some extent. And you will learn how to maybe identify it for your partner. You'll maybe don't bring it up to her. Fine, we can discuss how to do that in a way, but
That's gentle.
the gentle.
Yeah.
But it's like 50% of the population is going to experience it if you live to a certain time frame. And it happens in a time frame where we're also the most needed by everyone in our circle.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to have this, we need to hear it over and over and over again, where our options for treatment are as well, because it takes a lot of time and effort for a woman to take time for herself. And she has to know that that's going to be worth it for her to miss work or not go to a game or do something. And so for her to know that she can do that, I think is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said in the intro, 10 million Canadian women over the age of 40, because this is sort of the time frame that we're talking about. Quarter of the population in Canada approaching perimenopause or in it. So can you maybe walk us through, what are we talking? What is perimenopause? Because it's actually being thrown around a lot now, as well as menopause and postmenopause. And so I always like to get started by defining what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe you can unpack perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause.
Yes. So I think the easiest is to define menopause. So menopause is the date of your last menstrual period.
It's like one day.
It's one day.
Yes.
The thing is we don't know that day until a year later, because we call you postmenopause once you are
Past that day.
past that 1 year. So if you bleed, that's really easy to identify, right? Because you had a period October 1st, 2022, you did not bleed. We call menopause was October 1st. Everything after that is post. I think in normal day-to-day language, we'll just say you're in menopause. Technically, we should say you're post-menopause, but menopause generally means after, I feel like how it's used. Perimenopause is everything around that one day. The challenge with perimenopause that I find is the scientific definition that we actually use when we're looking at clinical research is based on changes in the menstrual cycle or lab work changes. And so a woman will go to her doctor and say, my cycles are still normal, but this is happening, et cetera. I'm having these symptoms. And they'll be like, well, your periods are still normal. You're not in perimenopause, because our definition that we use in research is based off that. But we know that a woman will experience symptoms of the hormone changes before that period changes.
Right.
So the challenge is the perimenopause definition. And it's also super vague. There's not a thing to test it. There's not a blood work. It's just
anecdotal almost.
Yeah, because it's your hormones are shifting, which we know they do around menopause. It's basically what it is. And it might have symptoms, it might not.
And what's the time frame?
Yeah, this is, I always feel like I'm the bearer of bad news with this one. It can be 10 years before menopause.
Right.
So the menopause is the average age is 52. 45, 46, 47 can happen. So we can have 35-year-olds
right
with perimenopause
starting to experience those symptoms.
Yeah.
And so from your clinical perspective, when a woman begins to experience these symptoms, you would consider her in that perimenopausal phase?
Yes. It's challenging because at early perimenopause, one of the things I'll say is that perimenopause is a challenge between your hormone system and your nervous system. And perimenopause is when those two start to not be able to balance each other out. So if you have a really stressful month, your hormonal system is pretty resilient and will do what it normally did. But as we get older, that stress then leans into our period, and we might have more PMS, we might have something shift, and the same thing happens on the other side. So if our nervous system is pretty stable, we can handle the bigger changes in our hormones that might happen in the early years. And then, but if you have a super stressful month, then these changes in your hormones are going to feel worse. Like that's when you're going to feel like, I can't handle this right now. Like the stress feels too much, right? That like over the edge. So early peri is really challenging because there's usually other things there as well, right? If there's heavy bleeding, there's probably some low iron. Like I said, there might be stress. Women are having kids later. So a lot of times like postpartum is going right into perimenopause.
Right.
And that's super challenging too. I think we love to put labels on things. And there's a lot of value in being able to identify with what's going on and finding a space and a home with that. But we also need to remember to pull back on the symptoms and just support the woman's symptoms. And so even if like whoever they're seeing is like, no, you're not in perimenopause because your period is still normal, her symptoms are still true and valid. And those need to be supported no matter what her stage is. Our options for support are broad. Really.
So I just want to circle back to something you said. There's a relationship between the immune system,
nervous system, sort of like our stress response.
Yes.
Yeah.
The nervous system and the hormone system. I've always been fascinated by the variation in women. Like even my friends, like some of them are just struggling with symptoms and others are like, meh, I get hot a little bit once in a while.
Yeah.
And I know there's probably many, many things, but I think that's also very confusing, I think, for some women. It's like, well, why is Julie like skipping through the streets and super like great? And I am like, I can't get my ass out of bed in the morning. I'm bleeding and all these things. Like, why is there such variation?
I think the nervous system component, like everything else going on in that woman's life, right? What is her external support like? What is her nutrition like? What is her exercise like? Everything like that. But also the age, right? So if someone's going to go through menopause at 46 and someone else is going to go through menopause at 53, their perimenopause is going to start at different times.
Right.
So that woman who's going to experience menopause earlier is going to be suffering while all of her friends are like, what is happening to you? And she's just going to feel alone.
Yeah.
And then 5 years down the road, she'll be the one all of her friends are asking questions to.
Yeah.
But it's also that we don't know what stage we're in until later.
Yeah.
Is the challenge. But it is, everything else plays a role. So that's where I think this conversation is so important. It's so loud online. And I know that a lot of even my friends are like, well, like that's for like late 40s. And I'm like, okay, but you can make a change now.
Yes.
Like we have to plan for this. And it's really just about being healthy, right? It's really just about taking care of yourself. What can you do to make sure that you can handle challenges? And perimenopause is just a really big hormonal challenge
that you have no control over.
None. Like it's happening.
Yeah.
Like if you live, it's happening. There's stuff we can do to make it easier. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
But we can't avoid it.
And I want to get into, how do we optimize our health? Maybe even in the early stages of perimenopause or before that stage of life, to mitigate, right, the extent to which we're experiencing these symptoms, but also while in perimenopause, what can we be doing to support our health? That's what you are an expert in, 100%. But before we do that, I want to break down, like, you do such a good job of talking about the hormonal shifts that are actually happening during perimenopause, and even like other states that a woman will experience throughout the duration of her life. We talk a lot about, I've got a 17-year-old, like, oh man, she got tons of education around what's going to happen. Your body's going to change. You're going to get your period and all these things. But then it's like, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
So maybe you can help break down like what's happening over the course of a woman's life in terms of like estrogen and all of these hormones that can really have a huge impact on our quality of life.
Yeah. So there's a graph, which I showed you, so I won't have that to rant at today, but I will pull that out every visit. Like it's laminated now and I like flip back and forth to the sizes. But so basically a woman will hit puberty and her estrogen starts to rise first. That's the wonderful time in a household. The challenge is that at the same time, perimenopause is probably happening. And perimenopause,
for mom,
yes, is a reverse puberty, but longer. Because why not? And everyone else just has to be careful. But that's happening. Like, I think when I relay that to a woman, they're like, oh my God. Because we give so much grace to teens, right?
Yeah.
They're just figuring it out. This is all new. They haven't, they don't know how to
They're not
manage
coping
the hormones,
mechanisms.
et cetera. And whereas the perimenopausal woman is also figuring out how to manage these fluctuations and now how to manage with like a different level of hormones that she's had for like 30 years maybe. So yeah, at puberty, what happens is our estrogen will start to rise first, and then basically we will ovulate. And it takes the body a little bit of time to have these regular ovulations. We produce progesterone only after we ovulate. So every time you ovulate, you make progesterone. And you'll see these beautiful graphs, and they'll be like this, like up and down progesterone, and that's because it's just showing your ovulation. If you have things happen like PCOS, a woman does not ovulate for an extended period of time, which is why the cycles are longer and farther apart. But for the most part, the estrogen actually never drops. It stays at a pretty like stable. It does go up and down, but it never drops like a progesterone does.
Right.
And so this is why if you're ever told to go check your labs, you'll be told to check your labs on certain days. Because if we check your progesterone on like day 7 of your cycle, and I was one step, if you're tracking your cycle, day 1 is the first day you bleed. So the first day you have your period is day 1 of your cycle. So if you go to do blood work and you do it on day 7, you wouldn't have ovulated. So your progesterone would be 0.
Right. Okay.
And this is where women will come in and be like, my progesterone is nothing. And I'm like, well, when did you? Yeah. And I'm like, it's supposed to be. It's good. It's all good. It's all good. And also, if you don't want to get pregnant, so if you're like late 40s and you don't want to get pregnant, that's okay.
Right.
Like now we're just doing symptom management, but our main concern around progesterone is fertility.
Right.
Because that's our progestation hormone, progesterone. Oh. And so we really are focused on that for fertility. But if you don't want to get pregnant, we're not as picky for like the actual lab numbers.
Yeah.
It's just symptoms, which makes it a bit easier because I'm like, we can let that go. Like we will make sure you feel okay and you're good, but we don't need to be like aiming for a number because I'm pretty sure you don't want a baby at 48. So
right.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
No. So yeah, then they go through this like rhythm of like relative, like it's the same. They might get pregnant and things change, and then they go through postpartum. Postpartum is menopause in like a second, right? So that's why we'll have those sweats that will happen, the postpartum sweats.
Or like the depression or mood changes?
Yes, because all your hormones crash in like 2 days. So it's menopause hyperspeed. Oh. But we, again, give so much grace. We have so much support around this woman, right?
Better. I will say it's better.
It's better.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think there's an obvious thing. There's a baby that came from this. So we know something happened. Whereas with perimenopause and menopause, the last period was a year ago. So you still had no idea. Like there's nothing to celebrate. You just like pass a day on a calendar and you're like,
I will be celebrating. Yes.
Yeah, and then perimenopause starts to happen. And so what we know that happens as we get older is our progesterone production starts to decline. And that's part of why our fertility declines as we age. So if you're looking at this graph, that like up and down of progesterone that happens will slowly hit, the highs will be lower because its peaks start to drop. And then at the same time, your estrogen levels, because your ovaries are really trying to ovulate because it's like, let's keep going. Like we want to make babies. You are much more than a baby maker, but your ovaries 100%. Really want you to make babies.
Yeah, it's biology. Yeah.
And so your estrogen will actually start to get a little bit higher. So we have this time frame where the estrogen is higher and then the progesterone is lower. And then slowly the estrogen will drop over time. And both the estrogen and progesterone will drop. And then we hit like a postmenopause state where the first couple of years you might have like a little bit of blips, but it's relatively flat.
Stable.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges is the variation in the levels. And so estrogen will be super high and then it'll go super low. And so in the span of like 2 months, we'll have the highest level of estrogen that a woman's experienced to the lowest level of estrogen she's experienced. And what we know now is it's not necessarily the levels that might be the stress, it's the change in the levels. And that's where we come back to the nervous system, where how adapt are you to the change? Like how much resilience, how much stores do you have? Like you're going to feel that. And the woman might feel that in the sense that she needs more sleep. Her nutrition feels a bit off. Her exercise feels different, but not to the point where she might be making adaptations without knowing it because she has this reserve. But it's that change of the hormones in peri that is where the symptoms come from and where we feel really off.
So let's, and I really appreciate you kind of unpacking that, because I think as women, particularly I'm like I'm in it, this phase of life. And you can feel that up and down that you're talking about. Like, even if it's to the degree that there's just a little bit more edge around everything. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and for you record this weekly.
Yeah.
And so when a woman will have reoccurring events, so even like end of the month audits or like bookkeeping, these things, they'll be like, I don't understand. Like, this time was so hard.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to snap at my accountant every time. Whereas like last month, it was fine.
Yeah.
So they'll identify it in how they're showing up differently.
Yeah. What else are sort of key indicators? I know we sort of gloss over it and say symptoms, but like, what are the symptoms? Like, what are the key indicators that you're experiencing these kind of like the roller coaster of hormonal adjustments that are happening?
The most common one, like the obvious one I'm going to say, is the hot flashes and night sweats. And that will happen first just before your period. So mid, sometimes early perimenopause, but usually like mid to late, like as you're kind of getting closer, a woman will be like, I know my period's coming because the 2 nights before I have hot flashes.
Oh, interesting.
And so they'll get hot flashes, night sweats, like just before their period. Because what triggers you to bleed is your hormones drop. And as you get closer to your final period, your lows become lower. So now right before your period, you're experiencing like a menopause, like a very low estrogen state. So you're getting the symptoms. That's going to be the more obvious one. Mood is another big one and this one's really hard for someone to pick up. And what's interesting about it is, especially if a woman has experienced mood concerns before, she will flat out say, I feel depressed, but I'm not depressed. And she will know it's different. The challenge is if she goes to potentially, like, if a healthcare provider doesn't know her, they don't have the time, like they hear depression symptoms. They do sound like it, but the woman will be like, I know this isn't depression. Like, I know this is something different. Anxiety can feel a little bit worse. And hormones do really, like, supporting the hormones can really help those cause things. Sleep is another big one. And there's some research that we think sleep changes might be the very first like sign of the hormones being different or starting to change. Then it's also just like how your capability, your resilience, they'll feel like they can't handle stress the same way. Joint pain is another huge one. Arthritis, the like diagnosis of arthritis in women tends to be around their 50s.
Frozen shoulder.
Frozen shoulder is crazy.
Yeah.
And then when I like give estrogen, it gets better. Like, it still blows my mind. And honestly, the symptoms, the list is huge. And I have stopped being surprised.
Yeah.
Because I will give
it's
a
pretty
woman
much
estrogen.
everything.
Yeah. And they'll be like,
Headaches,
oh, this is better. And I'm
yeah.
like, cool.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that, but great. Like, super happy for you.
Yeah.
And another big one too, actually, is like vaginal dryness. And that will happen. That can happen quite a long time before other symptoms. And we will dismiss it to just not having a libido or reoccurring UTIs. That is different. So if a woman is starting to get UTIs, even like her late 30s, 40s, and that is not her pattern, that's something that we can also address and support.
And you mentioned vaginal dryness, UTIs, and pelvic floor dysfunction. That was like, for me, I think one of the first red flags. I mean, I know as we get older and there's like gravity and you've had kids and like all the things, but like I was like, what is happening? Like, I can't even sneeze and things are just not good. So that is also, I've read, a key indicator that things are starting to.
I don't know if I said this at the talk you were at, but one line that I think I have said, and I know how to start saying it before, is like, we just need to expect more.
Right.
Like, we are allowed to expect more from our health. And when things change, we don't just need to chalk it up to age or this or whatever. And if something is different, it's okay for you to expect more from the healthcare system.
Right.
Like, it's okay for you to do your research and look into it, because even if it's age, like, we probably have something to help you, but we can start asking those questions.
And I will say this, like, I think I've shared with this audience, I had breast cancer at 44. One of the things and I had great care, like on both sides. I had great care within the Western medical system, but I also had a bunch of other folks on my team, including a naturopathic physician, acupuncture, all of those things. One of the biggest things I learned through that experience is that, to what you just said, is no one's going to do it for you.
No.
The thing is that I get chirped a lot by my family because, I'll have like one little thing and I'm like, oh, I'm pretty much dying of this or whatever. But like, it's more just that I have become very attuned to, if something is giving me feedback in my body that doesn't feel right or doesn't feel normal, I go investigate.
Yes.
And the reason for that is kind of what you just said, is like, the way that our health system is designed, it's not proactive.
No.
Right? And so the proactive part has to come from us.
Yes.
And so we have to be like, oh, okay, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
I can expect more. Like,
yeah. And I will tell my patients, like, the closer you are to death, the better our healthcare system is for you.
right.
And the farther you are from that, the worse it is.
Because
And
it's not set up that way.
It's not that's just like, I am super thankful that if something happens, I have the support. If there's a car, there's no questions, right? But like, it's just not set up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also important for us to clarify our expectations, and for patients, because they'll come in. A lot of the times I have patients that are really annoyed at the system, obviously, just with my role. And I'm like, okay, hold on. That's not how this system is set up. And so, and I know there's a privilege to come with like building a team, but it also, if like, there's so much information and education online.
Yeah.
And you can educate and get resources at any expense, right? You can Instagram, TikTok, you can do it at your own course. There's books, like there's ways that we can get more information. And it's just about educating yourself and learning when you want to reach out.
Also, I can't diminish the power of having friends
Yes.
that you can talk to about this stuff. I have this group of friends that we met when our kids were actually in kindergarten together. That was back in the day when we would all just stand outside and wait for them to get out, because it was like a half day kindergarten.
Yes.
And so we've just formed this group, and we can talk about these things. So when, we call it dead vagina.
Yep.
Like when that's happening, oh my gosh, all the men listening to this are like, what? But when that happens, you can say like,
yes,
to your friend, is this normal? And they're like, oh yeah, no, that happened to me, or this is what I tried, or you need to try that, or go talk to this person. So it also helps for you to feel seen and not like you're losing it.
And
right?
I think finding like people, like, what can you do in your 30s? What can you do? It's finding your team, finding the people, and your team can be part of your community and your social circle. But finding your providers, your team, your people who you can talk to, where you're like, I think I'm dying. I spent 10 hours on Google yesterday. Yeah. And that they're not going to be like, that's not happening, and you're feeling dismissed.
Right.
Right. You want to be able to find those people, whether it's healthcare provider, your family, whatever that is, where you feel safe to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Because what we know, say for like vaginal dryness, it's like 90% of women will experience it, but only a third of women will actually ask for support, and it's less than 10% will be offered treatment because most of them are too scared to ask, and they don't know how to bring it up, or they think it's just normal. And there's so many things like that, which is why I'm so happy that there's so much noise around it. Like, better or worse, there's always pros and cons, but people are getting awareness, and so they're asking questions now, and they're ready to ask for support.
Yeah, which is, again, can't underline it enough. That's part of our responsibility, I think, as let's call it patients or people in the world, is that we have to be able to put our hand up and say, I need some help.
Totally.
We're really bad at that too.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't bring it up, we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about symptoms. I want to just circle back a little bit to you've mentioned labs, because I think this is a piece that is important. because sometimes the first stop is perhaps maybe your family doctor or your GP, and they do the blood work and the labs come back. And as you said, everything looks normal. I've had this happen to me too. It's like everything looks normal and I don't feel normal. What are we missing?
We don't have a perimenopause range.
Right.
Like we have a postmenopause. And so you might get depending on your situation. So if you are still cycling, then honestly, we probably don't need to do lab work because your period is telling us what's happening.
Okay.
And your estrogen levels vary so much, like we talked about, that we don't get a ton of information that's actually going to direct your treatment. And all the ranges, like if you look at the lab rec, it's like by your follicular phase, your luteal phase, your ovulation, and those are so broad. So you usually fit into one of those at some point. If you aren't bleeding, so if you had an ablation, an IUD, a hysterectomy for whatever reason, then lab work is very helpful because we don't have a period to look at.
Got it.
But even still, you're looking at what if we happen to catch that one time you're ovary ovulated. Right. And so your estrogen was actually okay. But it's because the lab work problem comes from our system is so designed to lean on labs, not symptoms and patients, that when it's not flagged into postmenopause, we're like, oh, well, you're not menopause yet, so you're fine.
Or just like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but we don't have a perimenopause range. So it's either like you're reproductive or you're not.
Right.
Is really where the labs come from. But you also don't need labs to determine if you need treatment.
Right.
And I think that's a big barrier.
Yeah. And I will say this. Oh, and I can only speak from my own experience, but my GP is, maybe she's progressive. I don't know. But I do feel like the conversations are being had.
Yeah.
Also about some of the options that women have that are experiencing symptoms that may not, be in menopause.
Yeah, totally. And I think the reason I just bring up about the labs is because I see a variation of where
we hear it a lot.
A woman will feel like she needs to have lab work in order to get treatment. She'll have gotten lab work and been told she's not in menopause yet, so she can't be given anything. Or she'll be told she has to do certain labs in order to get treatment. And it's where it's like, it just needs to be information. But for the most part, it's probably not going to change what we do. Labs are about safety. And say, is there anything else I need to care about?
Right.
Like, is your cholesterol high? Is your sugar high? Is your iron low? Whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I have shared so much about myself on this podcast. Why stop now? But I'm in that phase where everything is very heavy.
Yes.
Right. And this is where you actually changed my life when I heard you speak. And you're like, if it is like that don't just chalk that up, because I was doing the same thing. I'm like, this is just obviously normal. But there's normal and then there's too much. Yeah. Right. And so I had really low ferritin. I did get some blood work done, really, really disturbingly low ferritin, which explained a lot. Yeah. And so in that particular case, having that blood work done was super helpful.
And so it's we just don't need to do the hormones maybe. Yes. Everything else we should probably do. But right? Because there's so many things happening.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And thankfully that's something when you do have low iron, you can treat that.
Yeah. And it's relatively easy.
Yes, it was.
Let's pick the easy things before we get to super complicated stuff.
Totally.
We try to make things harder, but let's make it easy.
Yeah.
We're tired already.
Yeah. Right. No, it was, yeah, I was very grateful that we were able to pinpoint it to that. So, we talked about symptoms. We've talked about the labs. I want to talk about naturopathic medicine. Okay. Because I am a huge believer in there is a role to play. We talked about our medical system being set up to be on the reactive side of medicine. That's just the way it has been designed. Once you start experiencing symptoms or discomfort, illness, then you go see the doctor. And I want to ask you about naturopathic medicine because the model is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So what role like, what role does someone like you play in all of this? Because there's certainly a role for our GPs.
Absolutely.
And I do really want to give them credit, because I think a lot of the times it can be easy to just point to, our system.
I will, like, patients will come in, again, they'll point to their GP or the system, and I'm like, usually we're going to take a step back.
Yeah.
Because also I have the privilege of, I have mostly selected my patient population. I am not going to see a 2-year-old after you, and then a 97-year-old, and then like a male. Like,
exactly.
They have to know so much.
Yeah.
So how can we expect them to be focused in every area and experts in everything? And also, especially here in the interior, like, they're capped, they're busy, there's a shortage, they're overworked. Like, there's so many problems here. Like, and they're doing their best.
And I want us to get away from the this or that.
Yeah. And I will preface, like, I'm like, it is not an either or.
Yeah.
Like, my goal is that we are working alongside your family doctor and that they can just feel confident that we have this piece of you. And so that we will, like, keep them informed and we will loop them in. But then, like, we've got this part, and then they'll be brought up to date as we need them. And then that way you, like, when a lot of the times too, we chat before they go to their doctor, so they don't come to their doctor with a list of 7 things.
Yeah.
And because we've chatted it through, and I'm like, okay, I really feel like this is the hierarchy symptom here. Yeah. And then their time with their doctor is much more efficient.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the biggest role we play, is time. Is we have more time with our patients. We get the privilege of, like, really getting to know you so much better. I'll say I get to, like, land in your world for a bit, right? So I get to, like, experience and hear things from you that are small pieces of the puzzle that might actually be really significant that you don't think about. And then that your doctor doesn't get that opportunity to have. And so I think that's the biggest part, is that we have the time. And because we have the time, we build such a trustworthy relationship often with our patients. And so we can do these small shifts where we focus on the lifestyle, we focus on, like, whether it's supplements, nutrition, all of it. And also with time comes that I can give you a menu of options. And so you don't have to feel like you just got Alfred 1. Like, here's all the things you have available to you, pros, cons of everything. Because I really believe that a woman should know what she's saying yes to. What is she saying no to? And that, right? So if we're saying yes to this supplement, or if we're saying yes to hormone therapy, if we're saying yes to the pill, what are you saying no to? And vice versa, because that's a part of the conversation that I'm sure medical doctors would love to have. And a lot of the times patients might do the exact thing that their medical doctor recommended, but we just get to have a bigger conversation about it.
And I want to also give you the opportunity to talk about just naturopathic medicine in general, because I still think there might be a little bit of reservation on people's parts, because there's, like, it's like woo woo, or you just want to sell us vitamins, or and like, full disclosure, I want one of my children to become a naturopathic physician, because I revere the Western medical system and our physicians, but I also just really appreciate not to answer the question for you, but, like, the integrative, holistic approach. So tell me why is this legit?
Yeah. And I'll preface with, like, there's a range of NDs. Like, there's any physician, there's absolutely a range of us out there. And so we definitely have some, like, woo-woos, and we have some, like, really non-woo-woos. And then I like to say I'm, like, somewhere in the middle.
You are actually, I think you're, like, more leaning towards, I do love the fact that you're very much based on scientific evidence and research.
And we bring in the woo. Like, I'm like, if something feels right, I'm like, that seems good.
Yes.
Like, right. It's like, for me too, is especially, I think, because we have a target on us, I'm like, you need to be presented what you would be presented with in your, like, a normal conventional system. And then if you still choose to go beyond that, that's fine. But we can't just not give you information. Like, that doesn't feel right to me. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is we have a menu of options. And part of, I think, the misunderstanding comes from also the scope of NDs is different in every province in Canada. And so not all of us can prescribe. So in BC, we have a very broad prescription scope. So we can prescribe a lot of things. But then at the same time, we also can have a lot of nutrition and lifestyle training and supplements. And it's really about fitting what works for you and fits your values and goals, right? So if someone comes in and they're like, we all know this person, like, I won't take any medication, even if, like, that might be their best option, then we might have other things that they can try
in the toolkit,
the toolkit that they can try, instead of they're not doing anything. And then maybe whatever happens, and it might still be supportive and do things. But like a lot of this stuff is great, especially when you're in this nothing's really wrong, but I don't feel good phase.
Right.
Like meds are great when we know what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But in that phase, we don't have like, there's not a med that fixes, I don't know, I feel off.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where this like naturopathic, this holistic medicine really thrives.
And so you will look at everything from, like you said, like how much sleep are you getting to what are you eating?
Yeah,
how
like
much
sleep,
are you exercising?
stress.
Where are your sources
Like the
of
best
stress?
example comes when a woman comes in complaining about her weight, which
Yeah.
unfortunately is also part of what happens. And so they'll be like, I want to do this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, how's your energy? Because if you want to work out, how's your energy? Like, I'm exhausted. Like, okay, well, how's your nutrition? They're like, well, I'm barely eating. I'm skipping meals. I can't get food in. This is happening. I'm like, okay, well, how's your sleep? Because are you waking up? Like, are you sleeping into the
Exhausted.
last moment? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I sleep like shit. And then we just take that step back. And I'm like, okay, well, before we worry about you going to the gym, let's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to be able to do your meal prep that you want to do for the energy to get you to the gym. And so even when I'm teaching other clinicians, I'm like, we have to take the stepwise approach because don't overwhelm your patient.
Mm-hmm.
They're on Instagram. They already know what to do.
Yeah.
Our
We're
job is to
already
help
getting
them
the
get
bulleted list
Yeah.
from Dr. Mary Claire.
Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
you're just like, where's your barrier? Where's your first barrier that is the easiest thing we can attain? And we just work there, right? And it's step-by-step approach to get you where you want to be. And I think that's also the beautiful part of where we can work alongside the conventional care. Because if they have or cardiometabolic health, right? Their cardiovascular risk is really high. Primary care can take care of the meds really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can manage the lifestyle. But we still have that background training to at least know when we might need to send them back to have things shifted. So we might be able to feel a bit more confident than if we just send them to like some trainer down the street or whoever, right? But it is that we get to piece things together so that it feels attainable and not like this list that you're like, I don't know how I'm going to check all that off.
Totally. Yeah. And I think what you also said too about a continuity of care, and appreciating that like our family physicians have so much already on their plate and really designed to help treat symptoms.
Yeah.
There is this element, and you talked about it. I mean, you know, the perimenopausal symptoms, there's such a laundry list, and we've even just scratched the surface. You talked about the weight gain, the cardiovascular health. I want to talk about some of the proactive measures that we can take so that if it's possible to mitigate the strength and the wallop of these symptoms, that if somebody is listening and they're maybe in their 30s or early 40s, what are some of the things that they can be doing to help optimize their experience?
And it's starting with the boring things.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the pyramid of health, I'll say. And Instagram and social media really focuses on the tip, right? We're like, oh, take this specific form of magnesium and this specific thing. And they're like, should I do this? I'm like, okay, well, why don't we just sleep first? Mm-hmm. And so focus on like your sleep, your activity, and your nutrition, and then your stress. And like those 4 pieces.
Which is like,
it's a lot. It's
yes.
like, it's only 4, but that's a lot. Even just when I ask a woman to get enough protein in, I'm like, that is your only job. That is your only job between our next visit. And I expect you to fail. Mm-hmm. Because I want to know where it's hard. Mm-hmm. So like they will be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, this is great. We learned where it's challenging because now we can help you. Mm-hmm. But if you go and you nail it and you do all this effort to like appease me, because that's what women do. But I'm like, my expectation is that it's going to be hard, and I want to know where it's hard because that's where I can help you. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, one of the biggest flaws when we come to these bases. We make these plans for perfect life, but that doesn't stay. So I'm like, we need to plan to fail. Mm-hmm. Right? What happens when you sleep in the morning, or how are we going to get activity in when you can't go to the gym at 6 a.m? And it's not in this negative way. It's just in this positive, like, how can we build habits that are consistent, that are actually built for real life, not this ideal life where all of our children sleep in and never get sick.
Totally.
Right? Mm-hmm. And because that's where the good days should just feel easier, but every day should feel attainable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's say the part that's super bothersome is the weight gain.
Yeah.
I think that is such
Yep.
a valid observation. You know, and the hot flashes. Are there things? Let's start with the weight gain.
Yeah.
Are there things that we should know about what's happening in the body that's causing this? And you mentioned protein and all these things. What are some of the things, again, proactively, that we can start introducing to our lives before and during that would help mitigate what we know is ultimately going to happen?
Yes. And the biggest thing is that the changes in your hormones around perimenopause make it harder for you to maintain your muscle mass. Like, to put it simply, that's
the
what
drop
happens.
in estrogen.
Yeah. And also, as we get older, we become in a way protein resistant. So you actually need to consume more protein to do the same amount of work that when you were 20. And also your estrogen makes it harder for you to maintain your muscles. So we're just like, there's two things working against us to maintain our muscle mass. So you have to eat more protein. Like, you have to eat way more than you think you want to. And it's
so hard.
It's so hard.
Yes.
But that's
we can do hard.
Exactly. And our muscle mass determines, so like our basal metabolic rate, right? That's the amount of calories you burn doing nothing. Sounds lovely. And as our muscle mass goes down, we burn less calories doing nothing. And this is one of the biggest things that leads to the body composition changes, because it'll be super subtle and gradual. But I'll try to shift my patient's attention to the scale weight, to this basal metabolic rate, because this is what we want to focus on, is actually bringing that up. By nature, then your weight will either stay the same or it will go down.
But your body composition would change if you had more muscle mass.
Yes, exactly. But then we don't, like, that number shifts into something else, right? And we're not focusing on the weight, like your number on the scale.
Right.
But that is the biggest component on the weight loss, is you have to focus on your muscle mass. And so for many women, they have to change how they exercised. And I think the woman who struggles the most is the woman who never struggled, because everything that worked for them before doesn't work anymore, because they've been able to kind of adapt. They'll be like, oh, like I would just do this and start running like 5K 3 times a week. And then I would like not eat chips at night and everything would be fine. And that won't work anymore because she's not the same. And so I'd say, like, one of the biggest messages is, one, be adaptable, for like huge. But also, if you don't change what you're doing, your body will change. And so we kind of have to like face the music that things are shifting. And so we need to change what we do in support of that. And even this is like our 30s, our 40s, is find things you like, right? So
like activity
wise, if you don't like doing something, don't do it, because you kind of have to stay active. So we have to find things you like, and that's okay if that also changes. But make sure we're also lifting weights. Like, I'm sorry, but your like 2-pound weights in spin class is not good enough. Like, that doesn't count as an arm workout. And it's that shift for women.
Darn.
I know. But also, any activity is something, right? Like, if you're not being active at all, we don't need to go buy you a weighted vest and you're not doing deadlifts. Like, you're just walking.
Yeah. Which is honestly, like, that's like the best thing.
Yeah.
For everything. I mean, we've had everybody sitting in that chair, from neurologists, cardiologists, sleep guys, you name it, and women, like, you name it, and they all say the same thing, like, just walk.
And I'll just be like, you just need some intentional activity.
Yeah.
Where you're doing something with the focus of it being your activity. And the more active your day-to-day life is, that will change. So if someone's super active all the time, walking to them doesn't feel like intentional activity. But if someone's very stationary, their half-an-hour walk feels intentional. And so it's just set that time aside. And as you grow, that will change. But there has to be intentional activity.
It was such a light bulb moment for me. You know, you hear it. I was that person that was like, you know, it was pretty easy to kind of maintain things, fluctuate a little bit, but you know, and then all of a sudden, I don't even know, it was like 48. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Nothing is working at all. And like, I would hear people saying, like, you have to lift weights. You have to like put on more muscle. And I was just like, why?
Yeah.
I love cardio.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to, can I just please have my Peloton and everybody just leave me alone and let me sweat it out?
Yeah.
But the answer is like, no, that doesn't work anymore, because of what happens, as you said, to the stress hormones in your body. And all of a sudden your body thinks that it's in fight or flight, and it starts hanging on to things. and then those things don't look good in a bathing suit anymore. And it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I read this book after I had cancer, and it really changed my whole mindset when it came to proactive healthcare. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but the premise, you'll love this, was that you within your body is this internal landscape, like a garden, and that all of the elements in the garden, like the soil and the water and the sunlight and the love, like all those things that make your plants healthy and flourish, right, are really dependent on how you take care of it.
Yeah.
Like you have to, you think about a garden, you have to go and you have to weed it. You have to take out the dead stuff. You have to like put good nourishing food.
You also have to change how you take care of it every season.
And then all of a sudden, you've been planting potatoes in this one area for like a decade. And now all of a sudden the potatoes don't like it there.
Yeah. You got to rotate the garden. I don't really garden, but I know you got to rotate things.
Yeah, I don't either. But like I sort of know what I'm doing a little bit. But like the point is that the soil's changing.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of try to figure out what that chemistry looks like. And it's a delicate balance.
Totally. And if you've, like in your situation, because it was relatively easy, you also wouldn't have learned things before, right? Whereas someone who's always struggled with their weight or always had to pay attention, they would have been just like you right now would be picking up on perimenopause things and hearing it, and the algorithm listens and gives you that information. That woman might have been getting that for a long time. So it's not that her journey is easier, but I find that there's less barriers with those women. Whereas a woman who's always been fine, they're like, there's a barrier to this that they need to change because they've never had to, and they have no concept of what protein is, or they really don't want to let go of their Peloton. Especially after the like Peloton craze of 2020. But COVID. It's that we have to be adaptable. You have to change.
And the great thing is that there's tools out there. There's still, it's so funny. Like, even though this conversation is happening more and more now, there's still so much stigma.
Yeah.
Like, why is it so hard for women to say, I am not doing good?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I look at my friend group and all of us are experiencing basically what is a major life shift. That's what we're talking about, right? A major, major life shift. And all of us are trying to pretend in some way that it's not happening to us.
And I think that this is like a big thing, but we have set up our lives for everyone to rely on us, right? If we think about like the parenting, the households, a lot of the women tend to take the default in that role, right? Where like the husband may not, that's like a whole conversation over there. And then because of whatever happens in the workforce, like a woman tends to also like take a lot of this load. They don't want to show weakness. They don't want to ask for help. And so,
or they don't want to be overlooked for promotions or have their career trajectory stalled for whatever reason, right?
And so there's so many reasons why I think we put up this facade and push through, because we also have seen other women do it before us, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing. And I think being more vocal about it is the first thing we can do. Where like you can sit in a boardroom and just be like, oh my God, I'm dying from a hot flash. You can still run that fucking boardroom and have your hot flash. Like that is how good we are. But it's okay for you to own that you have the hot flash, right? And just where if you're having a bad day, that's fine. You still showed up. Your 100% might be different than what it was yesterday. But I think being open about the symptoms and that change is changing that playing field where it's not like, oh, well, what is happening over there? And that judgment, it's just like, okay, we just need to change the temperature. And like, we just adapt and support that woman and we move on.
Totally. Yeah. And I do think that the conversations now that are happening are positive and moving us in the right direction. But it's also that women, I was raised in a generation where we were told repeatedly as little girls and all the way through that we could have it all and we could do it all and that we could, be mothers if that was something that we chose, and have careers and sort of hold it all together. And the fact is that it's just not possible.
You can, you just don't have to.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And if you are going to, this is also where this is like to go back on like a naturopathic medicine side. If you are going to ask your body to do more than it probably should, we probably have to make accommodations and do some things to support that. But you probably can't do it without support.
Yeah. And I guess that's a great circling back to what are the options that women have in terms of getting help.
Yeah. I would say like there's such a range, right? I think that, and it depends on where you're at. But no matter whether you're postmenopause or early peri, like mid-30s, there is something for you. The answer is going to be different depending on where you're at, right? The birth control pill, like, and I will have, because again, as a naturopath, people will not come into my office expecting the birth control being offered, but I'm like.
And just to circle back on that, you can prescribe birth control, you can prescribe,
hormone therapy. My line is
ADHD medicine.
No, I can't do anything fun. I can't do benzo stimulants or testosterone.
Okay.
So that's, sorry, I can't do anything fun. But for the most part, we can do like a lot of primary care meds. So we can do antidepressants if we need. We can do antibiotics, your like statins, your hypertension meds, but for like most women's health stuff, we can do.
Can you do ADHD meds?
No.
Oh, you cannot.
Those are the stimulants.
Those are the fun ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
No, we can't do those, right? But this is where like hopefully there's collaborative and trust built that because there's a whole thing about ADHD and perimenopause as well, where if I'm working with women and identify this, hopefully I can then have that relationship with her family doctor where I can send her back over. But yeah, we can do the wide range. And so this is where for me, I'm like, okay, well, here's all the options. Because if you're early 40s and your main concern is heavy bleeding and PMS, you are going to be offered the birth control pill at your family doctor or your gynecologist. And even right now, women are waiting years to get into a gynecologist. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go through all the steps that's going to happen before you get there. Because let's make your time the most effective it can. And so you know what steps they'll walk through and we can talk about it. But there's like, we have everything from that to like whether we're going to go the lifestyle support. And for sometimes we have to use the meds first so the lifestyle is accessible.
Exactly.
And that's like, we know what we're doing behind the scenes, right? So if I have this one who only feels good for 1 week out of the month because of her period, the birth control pill might make it so she feels good for 4 weeks out of the month. And now I can actually get her to work on her sleep and her nutrition and her exercise. And maybe if she wants to in the future, she can come off. Yeah. But this is like the blend of both, which can be so beautiful that we can use medication strategically if we decide to, so that we can actually make this lifestyle and everything else attainable and realistic for the woman.
And we didn't even get into HRT or hormone replacement therapy, which is great because that just means I have a reason to bring you back. But
that's a whole podcast.
It is actually. And I'm sort of grateful that we didn't get into that because I also just think you need to. HRT is one of the tools in the toolbox. It's not the only thing. No. And as you said, and I love your approach to this, like before we get to HRT, there's other elements that we can look at. Yeah. Right. And then.
And even if you are doing HRT, you still have to exercise. Yeah. We still there is some bone protection and heart protection, et cetera, but you still have to do all the other stuff for that. Like, your estrogen doesn't make it so you don't have to lift weights. Yeah. I wish. Yeah. I love being lazy. But like, you still have to do the thing. It just, any treatment makes your lifestyle, that's literally all any treatment does, is makes lifestyle accessible. How far you are from that is probably the more intervention we need to get you. Like but we just need you like sleeping, moving, eating well, and not super stressed.
Totally. And I'm going to ask you a question that I think, again, it's probably part of a bigger conversation on HRT. There was a lot of bad translation of science in the past around HRT. And as a breast cancer survivor, that conversation to me is extremely interesting and very valid. But in a nutshell, in general, is HRT safe?
For most women, the benefits associated with HRT drastically outweigh the risks. So what we never talk about is what is the risk if we don't. And we don't have that number.
Totally agree with you. We don't have that number, but there are so many women that are struggling like, and really struggling. Like, we're not just talking about being a little bit uncomfortable, getting hot, or, waking up in the middle of the night, bathed in sweat. We're talking about severe depression symptoms.
They're not doing their lifestyle pieces.
No, debilitating brain fog.
It's probably riskier for them to not sleep, not work out, and to eat like crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than it might be for me to add some estrogen into that picture.
Totally. I can't even believe it's been an hour, but it has.
Flew by.
It did. So I'm just gonna.
I knew we wouldn't get through all the questions.
I know I did. I didn't, but I'm actually okay with that because this is such a rich topic. How could you possibly cover everything in an hour? It's ambitious to say the least. But I want to just kind of switch directions a little bit because one of my favorite things about this podcast is that it's like human to human and not like human broadcast to the, like there's like an interaction, a personal connection.
Yeah.
And I am very proud of us because at the Wealthy Podcast, we really embrace the idea that health is your number one sort of attribute in terms of wealth, right? When you don't have it, you have nothing. You're in this space and you recognize, I think, better than anybody. Although I have to say, everybody that sits there really acknowledges that there are so many different aspects to our health that contribute to that wealth. Mm-hmm. What areas of your life would you say that you are wealthy?
When I read this, my community. I am so thankful for the community that I have. And like, for example, my little girl's sick today. And the only reason I can be here is because my parents have her, right? Like she's well taken care of. Like I have that community support, but also professionally. And like the community here is so wonderful. And I think that we didn't really talk on that, but that's such a, like you said, with your girlfriends, right? Like I know I have those people. I know that I have this support and that just, I am so thankful for that.
It is huge. And even you said, just kind of running in here today, your baby was sick this morning and you have your parents and then you're running into one of our obstetricians. I also had to move
2 patients, but they were like, yeah, no problem. Like, right. It goes beyond just like your immediate, but because I feel like it's such a value to me so that I think it does go into like my practice as well. So they were like, yeah, not a problem. Like reach out when you're good.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative of that, right? Yeah. That I knew that this was going to be okay. It's not great. Like they've designed their day around this appointment, but they're okay with it. And so it's just that community piece.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's part of why I love doing this podcast because our healthcare community here in the Central Okanagan is so vibrant. Yeah. And, if you just listen to the media stories, you're not getting that part.
Well, I was going to say, there's nothing like trauma to bring people together.
Yeah.
And you have to lean on each other in a space where there's not a lot of resources. And you have, like, the community will be stronger.
100%. Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, back to, like, little Brittany back in the day. Yeah. How do you think, now that you've been in practice for several years, how do you think your definition of health or what healthcare is has changed?
I think that it's not the practitioner or the person. I think you said that the best, where we're really like the guide and help to give the tools, but you do have to take some ownership on that. And my role is really just to help facilitate you and to make you in that space where you can feel like you can take that responsibility back and you want to again. But I think where you used to, like, we looked at your doctors as these, like, they're on a pedestal, right? And I think it needs to be a conversation piece and you need to be involved. And that has really shifted for me, where the patient is the center and it's about them.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to hear you say that. And I really think that your colleagues, in this space would agree that the better that we all get at being patients, like just being super curious about what is happening in our bodies. And when something doesn't feel right, it might not be right.
Yeah.
Might be fine.
Yeah.
But it might not be. And that there's no harm done in listening.
Yeah.
To that sort of like feedback that your body's constantly giving. We got really, really good at not listening.
Yeah.
But now we're back in the era of like the yoga teacher in me is coming out. Listen to your body.
Yes.
But it really is, that's our responsibility as patients and as women to like listen.
Yeah.
Our body is telling us something. Listen and seek help when we need it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the last word is yours, Dr.
Okay.
Brittany Schamerhorn. If you could leave our audience with one thought, one piece of advice, one inspiration, whatever it is, what would it be?
I think that you deserve to feel good and you can. And it's accessible to you. You just, like you said, you just have to reach out and ask that person, ask your friend, ask someone, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for support because you deserve to feel better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a pleasure to have
Thank
you.
you.
This has been a really great conversation.
Great.
You have a wonderful, beautiful energy. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And it wasn't, Jason was here. It wasn't all super like, women's stuff. No, it was good. Hey, it was good. We got the thumbs up from Jason.
He survived. He's fine.
Thank you, Brittany. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.